start recording, we can slowly roll into the webinar here at 5:06. Our title this evening is The Future of Fundraising Trends, Crypto and the Changing World of Philanthropy. This is a part of the Nonprofit Leadership Graduate Program here at University College at the University of Denver. And I'm Ellen Winarzik. I'm the director of the program and faculty as well. And Tracy, I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Ellen. I'm Tracy Justin. I work as the enrollment manager and academic advisor for the Nonprofit Leadership Program. Ellen and I work as a team to support the 90 to 110 students at any time to achieve career goals around being present and influencing the nonprofit sector. We have concentrations in philanthropy and resource development, which we'll hear about tonight, also mission-driven operations and management. I'm getting bleeped by Teams, Microsoft Teams. The other two, executive leadership and governance, and a really wonderful social entrepreneurship and innovation concentration as well.
Great.
So
yeah. So I'm going to move forward here in our slides and introduce the panelists. I noticed that Alice Ferris is soon here to join us. We have currently Josh Hirsch, who's worked in the nonprofit sector since 2006 with a focus on philanthropy, education philanthropy, and public charter and independent schools. Josh, do you want to say some more about yourself so I don't have to read from the slide?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see Alice is in the audience if you want to promote her to a panelist. It looks like she's on now.
That's great.
So I did my undergrad, my master's degree at the University of Florida. My master's degree was in family, youth, and community sciences, probably like the precursor to like a nonprofit master's degree. This is in the early to mid 2000s that I got the degree. And I'm one of those nonprofit lifers. Came right out of grad school and started working in the nonprofit industry. Went and interviewed for a programmer's position and got told you'd be good at fundraising. And I said, okay, didn't know anything really about it at the time. My first book I bought, and I highly recommend everyone to build a nice fundraising nonprofit library, was Grant Writing for Dummies. Didn't know anything about grant writing, but I read up on that. I started attending any workshops I could, and here I am 17 years later, now having spent a majority of my career as director of development, director of marketing, and I'm one of those nerds who gravitated towards digital communications and social media way back when we were talking in third person on Facebook, and knew that this was just going to be a space that nonprofits could own and really can market themselves well if done effectively. So I've always been like on the cusp of what's new, and I've tried to stay that way. The last 4.5 years, I was at Susan G. Komen as the social content marketing manager, handling Twitter and LinkedIn as channel leads. And most recently, I joined the Giving Block about 6 weeks ago as their crypto philanthropy education manager. So I'm really excited tonight to talk about just general trends in fundraising and what's hot, what's next, and then crypto for social good. I really believe there's a lot of power of what we can see in Web3 and blockchain technology. So we'll get more into that later.
Crypto for social good. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. More fun language. And let's welcome Alice Ferris. Alice Ferris is one of our esteemed nonprofit leadership faculty. Welcome, Alice. She's the founder of Goal Busters, which provides services in development and campaign assessment and strategic planning. Alice, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little more?
Certainly. Thank you, Ellen. And I apologize for being a little late, but I was on a call with a client talking about grants. So.
Of course. Go figure.
And sometimes the federal ones can get a little sticky. But yes, I am teaching right now. The class that I teach is fundraising strategy, technology strategy for fundraising. And Josh and I have known each other for Oh gosh, Josh, a long time at this point. We met each other through the Association of Fundraising Professionals, through the AFPeeps, the social media volunteer team. And Josh, we met first, I think, at Techno, was it? Yeah, there was a technology focused conference for
2012.
AFP. What was that?
Back in 2012.
Oh, wow.
You've known me
Gosh,
for
I have
10
known
years.
you for a while now.
Yeah.
But we like totally nerd out on some of the technology and social media related stuff, pieces of fundraising. And the other thing that I tend to nerd out on are kind of what are those future looking trends? I like to see, okay, what can I predict is going to happen next? I will admit that I'm not right a lot of the time, but it's always interesting to do the thought exercise of the, okay, what's coming next? So I'm happy to be here.
Alice, I just loved it. I don't know that I nerd out, but I too like to think about trends and try to predict where things are going. And the fundraising sector is just, I'll say, interesting, nerdy, and trendy right now. And trying to predict where it's going to go is really difficult, especially given that the economy is so crazy. So let me start you both off with, what are you thinking about? What are you predicting in terms of trends for this year? I keep hearing that fundraising is going to go down this year in comparison to the last couple of years during COVID. So what's your thinking, team? And Alice, why don't you start us off, and then Josh?
Okay, well, I think I'm on that same bandwagon. I do think that fundraising results are going to be down for fourth quarter of this year. They've already trended down for quarters 2 and 3. Now, quarter 3 is always soft. I mean, it's summertime. The whole academic pattern that we have grown up in for most of our lives doesn't really change. And so people go away, they go on vacation, for people with second home communities, they're switching communities, and they may not be as generous in their summer residence or in their winter residence, depending. And what I think we're seeing is something similar to the quote unquote Great Resignation. Because when you look at the statistics for the Great Resignation, it does look like a huge bump up in resignations for 2021 and the early part of 2022. However, when you take the Bureau of Labor Statistics about resignations per quarter and take them back to 2009, so the Great Recession, and you track them from 2009 to 2022, it's actually a straight line. It is a completely very vanilla growth trend. The blip is actually 2020. So there is a dip in 2020. And so 2021 and the beginning of 2022 were corrections back to normal. And I think we're going to see the same thing in charitable giving, that essentially if you plot along from 2009 to 2022, charitable giving in the US, you will see an unusual bump in 2020. And I'm predicting you will see that in 2021. And then so 2022 was a correction. And so I do think that we're going to see kind of a normalization of giving back to where it should have been in 2022 based on just a straight trend line.
Great. Josh, do you want to build on that? Thanks so much, Alice.
Yeah, so I'm in a different place now with my career in fundraiser. After having been on the front lines, I'm now on the vendor side and having to work with clients to educate them, and it's a completely different perspective. What I'm seeing is that those clients, and when I'm speaking about clients like nonprofit, we have 3 different levels of our nonprofit that we work with. Those that are investing more financially want more out of it and are participating more in the education that we're offering for them. So we're seeing that if you're not committing to whatever your strategy is, and we'll talk end of year now because we're coming into Q4, if you're not committing to your strategy and haven't already started to put that in place, let alone for the last 30 days, but looking at NFT Tuesday, Crypto Giving Tuesday, and Giving Tuesday in general, now is the time to get started. So I really believe that no matter what size of your organization you are, identify your approach for your campaign and stick with it. It's tried and true, no matter what time of year, but especially now as we move into Q4 and with the Giving Block, we process about 85 to 90% of our donations at this time of year. So that's not only giving from crypto perspective, but that's fundraising in general. So now is the time that you have to be on. Now is the time that you need to stand out. And what are you going to do to stick with your, once again, build the plan and work the plan? What are you going to do for your approach for this, this end of year campaign?
Well, that makes a lot of sense. With big changes, you don't want to try to turn the boat here at the end of the year. You want to stick with what you've got. So that's an important thing to be thinking about moving forward. And of course, making sure that you've got a strategy. One of the questions I wanted to ask was just a trend that we hear students talk about is donor-centric funding going away and going to be replaced by community-centric funding and crypto-centric funding. Does anybody want to try? Tell us what you're thinking.
So
is on that?
Josh and I both smiled on that question.
Think about VU.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is a really challenging discussion, because just like a lot of things in our world right now, this is about polarization. And I think the truth of the matter between donor-centric and community-centric is that it's not one or the other. It's a spectrum. It's a dimmer switch. And there are people at both ends of the extremes here that really want to say that they're right and won't hear any input from the other side because you can't possibly be right. So just like a lot of other things in our world, it's a black or white kind of thing. And really, when you think about the concepts of donor-centric, this is about making sure, in many respects, donor-centric was a revolution against the time it kind of became prominent, because it was really about respecting the donor's wishes, because it's not your money as the charity, it's the donor's money, it's the donor's investment. And so how can you respect what they want to do with the money? And then community-centric, from my understanding of it, is that no, essentially being donor-centric is the pushback is practically colonial. It's imperialistic, of the you with money, you with resources are going to come in and tell us how to solve the problems in our community, and you don't understand the problems in our community. So we should be the ones to dictate what you do with your money. I think there are strengths to both sides of that, and there are truths to both sides of that. But I don't think that community-centered fundraising is just going to completely displace donor-centric. And I'll let Josh get a word in edgewise now.
I'll agree with that completely. I still think that donors are the heroes. And too often, as the nonprofits, we think that we're the ones that are solving the problems. And when in essence, it's the donors that themselves, through their generosity, that's allowing us as the conduit to care to provide those needs, no matter what aspect of nonprofit sector we're working in. So yes, there is some argument of saying that it's entitlement, if you're looking at the donor-centric versus community-centric, but I believe that it's not going away. I believe that donor-centric fundraising is the right approach, but that's just me.
Actually, I think what I will provide to you, Ellen, is a link to a green paper from Rogare, which is a think tank on fundraising issues throughout the world. And they did a paper that was about this difference between donor-centric and community-centric. And I think it was something like, don't throw out the donor-centric fundraising with the community-centric bathwater. It was a really complicated title for a green paper, frankly. But it has a lot of the points in it that kind of debate this back and forth. And I will say that it kind of comes out a little bit on the donor-centric side, which is my bias as well. So just take that with a grain of salt. But I think it is the challenge that we have right now with community-centered is that because of the polarization around this topic, if you are one of those people that doesn't think it's one or the other, and you try to learn about donor-centric and you try to learn about community-centric, both of those communities are like, no, you're not part of us, so I'm not going to teach you about this. And I think we really need to get through that to be able to sort this out.
It's the old when new theory, new approaches come up, it kind of nudges and pushes on whatever the more experienced or historical theories have been, and the tensions around that. Apologies for meowing cat in my background. That's me.
I thought I heard something. I thought it was Josh's
It's,
stomach or something.
No. It's just my little cat over here wanting to bother me. But I phrase the question in that way because of that idea that so many people have said, and we've had a good conversation with our advisors to the program about this, and they were very clear. It's not an either or. It's a continuum. It's a spectrum. It's important to know your organization. It's important to know your communities and know your donors. So I look forward to the green paper, and do by all means send us that link. Tracy, did you have a hand up?
Yeah, just from I have an extensive background and a master's degree in nonprofit leadership and management. And I just wanted to ask you both as fundraisers who are steeped in this conversation, a little bit of where's the leadership around this conversation? What are the executive directors and the boards? What's the conversation on that level about donor-centered, community-centered, and how each organization might go forward? For example, in the NGO sector, I worked pretty extensively in overseas in Nepal and India in the NGO sector, where the donors are putting their confidence with their dollars toward the leadership that's focused around relief efforts or development efforts on an international scale. And so how does the fundraising piece in this very dichotomous conversation get folded in when you're feeling really confident about the organization and the work that they're doing, the ethical work that they're doing with communities in the United States?
Josh, you have anything, since I started first last time?
That's a good question. I can't really jump in initially to say what I'm seeing from a trend amongst executives. So I'm going to bat back to you, Alice, and then jump off of what you're saying.
Okay. I think that part of the challenge with, I think, not just this particular issue, but with the fundraising sector as a whole, is that we are a lot of tacticians. We're a lot of people with boots on the ground who are worrying day to day about how we're going to pay for things that are expenses for the operation of your program. And it becomes really challenging to get people to talk about the bigger picture issues, except for programs like ours, where we have a select number of academic programs throughout the world. There aren't that many nonprofit academic programs that can look at it from the research and analysis part of this. What's unique about programs like the DU program is that we have practitioners who are participating in academic environments. And those are true for a handful, really, of programs throughout North America. So we don't have enough people who are those people who have the day-to-day practice experience, who can also take the time to think about, well, yeah, what is the difference between donor-centered and community-centered? And what does that really mean to the bottom line? Because if you frankly told a executive director in an average nonprofit organization in the United States, oh, by the way, this whole thing that we've asked you to do regarding donor-centered practices, just throw those out. What you need to do is walk into a funder's office and say, no, we've been doing this all wrong. I'm going to tell you how to spend your money. how much pushback are you going to get like instantaneously from that funder? It's like, heck no, I'm giving my money to somebody else. So that's part of the struggle here, I think, is that the idea of shifting from donor-centered to community-centered is going to impact somebody's bottom line. And so how do we take the best of both philosophies and kind of stitch them together so that they do continue to bring money in from funders that are going to take a long time to shift to something else, but still address some of the equity issues that community-centered fundraising wants to promote. So we're in that fuzzy stage where it's just as one of my friends like to say, it's a big chocolate sticky mess, where yes, there are some strengths of community-centered fundraising, but we can't just throw out all of the donor-centered fundraising tactics because then you're not going to have any money.
Yeah.
That's
Thanks,
great. A blended
Alex.
approach.
Alex, it sounds like the leadership is coming from you. But folks in your position where you're able to influence the conversation. Yeah. Thanks.
Well, and I think that is, it is part of the work of Rogare, and I will disclose that Goalbusters, our company, is an associate member of, so essentially a funder of Rogare. But it is really designed to take some of the practitioner issues and combine it with the academic issues to really start to look at what does this actually mean.
Great, thanks so much. Josh, do you want to add anything?
I honestly can't weigh in on this subject like Alice can. She's much more knowledgeable than I am, so I'm gonna strike 2 on this one.
That's all right. No, not a worry. It's a good dialogue, and it's something certainly to think about. Let's shift it over to cryptocurrency and talk about, boy, how has this form of currency changed the sector to a certain extent? And of course, Josh, you should tell us a little bit about the giving block so that we understand what it is that you do. But before we go there, let's talk about why cryptocurrency, why now, after it's been around for as long as it has. Who wants to jump in there?
Well, I'm going to say like 2 sentences before I let Josh take over. I attended a session that Josh did at the Association of Fundraising Professionals International Conference in Las Vegas in May. And I was his speaker host, and he was supposed to have 15 minutes. And I learned so much in like the first 30 to 60 seconds about cryptocurrency that he was just hypnotizing everybody about cryptocurrency. But then I literally had to yank him off the stage at a half hour.
I went long. So we're really in the early days of crypto philanthropy. It all started in 2017 with the Pineapple Fund, and the Pineapple Fund was on Reddit. There was this pseudonym anonymous individual named Pine, and he basically said, "I have more wealth than I know what to do. I want to give back." So he started a website. There was a form. People went on. They got 10,000 applications in 24 hours. And by the time they were all said and done, they donated, at the time, the current value was, I believe, $55 million in Bitcoin. And these were nonprofits that didn't know what a smart wallet was, didn't understand the concept of cryptocurrency. And I like to call it digital monopoly money because it exists out there in the ether. It's, ones and zeros living on the blockchain, but there's actual value behind the algorithms that it takes to create these hundreds of different cryptocurrencies. So these nonprofits were waking up the next day with transformational gifts of high 6 and 7 figures that all of a sudden they had, at their fingertips that they didn't even know what to do with. So fast forward to just about 2 or 3 years ago, when the Giving Block began. So we're a startup phase organization that, just like on any nonprofit website, you've got that donate now button, and it takes you to credit card processing. Well, imagine that for crypto. And it's literally the easiest process. And what makes crypto, I think, so much more powerful is the speed at which we can make an impact globally. So World Central Kitchen, one of my favorite nonprofits, Jose Andres, who I've been fortunate enough to eat at a couple of different restaurants, once with Alice in Orlando. And he shows up when disaster happens, when there's strife in Europe, when there was Hurricane Ian in Florida. They're his food trucks, and they serve people. And they're a client of the Giving Block, so they're able to accept cryptocurrency donations. So let's say you went onto their website, you wanted to make a donation via credit card. You enter in your information, you process it. It takes, several days for those funds to hit their account, and then some additional days for those funds to be then transferred to their bank. And then maybe within 5 to 7 days, if we're lucky, they have that $100 donation. Well, the speed at which crypto can be processed is, we're talking anywhere from like 30 to 45 seconds to maybe 3 minutes. Depends on the speed of traffic of what's happening at the time. And I want to donate my one Ethereum. And let's say that one Ethereum is $1,000. I think right now the market value of Ethereum is about, about $1,400. And that's just the other thing too. Cryptocurrency is a very volatile market, because at one point in time, that one Ethereum that you donate, the fair market value is $1,400, whereas the next day it could be at $1,100. So we, as an organization, highly encourage our nonprofits, just as you would with gifts of stock, is liquidated immediately. So those gifts of crypto, those gifts of stock hit your account, you immediately liquidate it or sell it. But that's the other benefit to crypto. If the market's closed and you get that gift on a Friday, well, you can't do anything with it over the weekend. You get that gift at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday of one Ethereum, you can immediately, and the way we have it set up in our system is you can immediately liquidate it. So that one Ethereum now is in your bank account as $1,000. Or you can use that Ethereum to buy and sell goods to get what you need anywhere in the world. It's really fascinating from a perspective of what you can do from an impact from a donor side. So there's no charitable gains tax. So it's a benefit to the donor in that respect. At the same time, you have a much younger demographic of donors. By the way, stop me at any time, because I will literally nerd out and keep talking if you don't stop me.
Let me just make sure, Josh, hang on 1 second. Let me just tell everybody, if you've got questions, put them in the chat. And I'm going to ask one potentially naive question.
Sure.
Are you using the word Ethereum?
Yes. So Ethereum is, so there's, like I said, there's hundreds of different cryptocurrencies out there. There's some meme coins, which are basically just like laughable joke coins that really serve no purpose and have next to no value. And then you have others that are your most popular from a tradable perspective. Bitcoin, which at one point in time last year, I think was valued at around $60,000. Right now, I think we're at around 20 or so thousand. I think we were under the past couple of days at like 18, but we've seen like huge spike in the past 12 to 18 hours in the market. And then Ethereum is the other second largest. And it was actually last year for the first time on Crypto Giving Tuesday. Last year was known as Bitcoin Tuesday, where it's now been rephrased as Crypto Giving Tuesday. The Giving Block is the official partner of Giving Tuesday themselves. So we're that crypto partner that you'll see activations with. Ethereum actually flipped Bitcoin for the most donated by volume last year. I believe last year we did over $2 million in crypto donations on Crypto Giving Tuesday itself. And it's, like I said, we're just at the early stages of crypto philanthropy. The way that you fundraise through it, it's no different. So when you make your ask and you say, all right, as the University of Denver, we have our annual fund for the School of Nonprofit Management, and we want your support. So as you would steward any donor, it's similar, except crypto donors are younger. So we're looking at the average age is under 38 years old. Per capita income is at $111,000, and they're male. So we have young, educated males that have a desire to give back, that invested in cryptocurrency when it was pennies on the dollar, and now they have that ability, and they're learning about the first time of like, all right, from a tax perspective, what are the benefits of donating $1,000 in cash or $1,000 in cryptocurrency? Well, you're going to get a better return by donating that cryptocurrency because A, the fair market value at the time, the speed at which, and the charitable gains tax. It's all going to benefit you as if you were going to give a different sort of giving model. At the same time, nonprofits who are like, well, our giving, our average donor base is 65 years old, female, we don't have crypto donors. Well, yes, you might not know of active donors within your pipeline, but that's not to say who the 65-year-old grandson who is investing in crypto and grandma has breast cancer and grandson wants to give back to Susan G. Komen because they've seen what they've done to help grandma. That grandson is now able to make a charitable gift and start to learn about philanthropy in that sense as well. But you're also future-proofing your nonprofit. So you need to be ready, just as you need to have a gift acceptance policy. And pretty much, if you have a gift acceptance policy for stocks and gifts of securities, you just more or less cross out the word gifts or stocks and put in cryptocurrency. Non-financial advice, speak with your attorney, speak with your lawyers. But it's, the TLDR is that.
Good job. Good job. That's great.
Well, I'm going to jump in and ask you a question, Josh. Since you mentioned the gift acceptance policy, one of the pushbacks that I heard about cryptocurrency early on, early on is probably like 3 years ago, it is that the environmental footprint of cryptocurrency meant that organizations that were in environmental causes should not accept cryptocurrency. So what's the myth busting on this?
There is certainly an environmental impact, but the Giving Block offsets that with our gifts back. There are advancements in the technology where it is not as harmful to the environment from a power drain and all that respect. But at the same time, if it is going back to donor-centric or community-centric, are we going to let the donor drive the way that we want to accept gifts? Or are we going to let the organization say we want to accept the gifts a certain way? I believe that we need to provide donors and potential donors any method possible of which to give, especially if we're looking at a younger demographic, your millennials and Gen Zs that have that ability to support your organization through other means. They're not going to make a charitable annuity right now to your organization, but they might donate half an Ethereum to you. They're going to donate $600-700 because they really believe in what you're doing to save the great spotted owls. So.
You must be from the Pacific Northwest. Only those folks would know the northern spotted owl.
I'm actually a Florida born and raised. I live in flip-flops or bare feet 365. So.
Oh man, gotcha. Very fun, very fun. So if a nonprofit wants to get started doing this, what should they do?
So obviously you're going to go to thegivingblock.com and you're going to schedule a visit with us. No, what I would first do before you contact the Giving Block is determine that, do you have support internally? So a lot of times we'll see that, and especially with Komen, nowhere in my title did it say fundraiser. I was a social content marketing manager, but I knew a lot of my responsibilities was to create content, drive content, analyze content to help drive our message of research, care, community action through fundraising activities, through Twitter posts. But at the same time, I was handed an article last June 2021 referencing crypto for social good. And as I do with a lot of things, I dove down a rabbit hole and I identified that this is going to be a means of giving for the future. So I put together a whole case statement outlining a lot of the benefits to the donors, benefits to the nonprofits, philanthropic NFTs. We haven't even talked about that yet, but that's another nerdy thing I like to talk about. So I presented this to our the higher ups, and it took us about 6 months to onboard. So the position of crypto philanthropy fell upon me as a social content marketing manager and our director of major gifts, because she had donors that are approaching her saying, we wanted to make gifts in crypto. So that's really what got us across the finish line, was us working together to make that happen. So you need to, but first, before you even jump into it, do you have that internal capacity to take what it, to manage this giving vehicle properly. You know, the donors are a different type of donor. A lot of times they're anonymous, they're going to find you, and the way that you store them is going to be different. 98% of your communication, the crypto world and NFT world, lives on Twitter. So from a communication standpoint, yes, you're going to have it in emails. Yes, you're going to have it in your direct mail and newsletters and things like that. Always reminding people you accept crypto. But the conversations and where it lives all lives on Twitter. So once again, do you have this internal capacity to handle that? If you say yes, we do, you've got your board on place, then I would say contact the Giving Block and sit through a demo, see how easy it is to be a part of the tools and the research and the education that we provide for our clients, and go from there and see where you are today and how is your crypto strategy. Because once again, as I was speaking before, what is your approach for end of year, whether it's direct mail, digital, crypto, like how are you going to apply that strategy all throughout the year, specifically to crypto?
That makes sense. That really helps just in terms of structuring it. So it takes some thought time, it takes some planning time, and you've got to have the culture to be able to think about it and pull it off, and then obviously have a plan. You were talking earlier about, was it philanthropic NFTs?
NFT,
I'm guessing
yes.
That's non-fungible tokens.
That is, yes.
Tell
So
us more.
Before Josh goes down the NFT rabbit hole, I do want to just re-emphasize one of the things Josh just said, though, is that it has to be part of a strategy. Because I think what a lot of nonprofit organizations do is that they see a shiny thing. And I'll tell you, philanthropic NFTs, those feel like a shiny thing to me. And they say, I'm going to build the strategy around the tool, as opposed to building the strategy and then having the tools available. So Josh, I still don't get this whole NFT thing. You got to help me.
I'll jump to that, but I see Robin has a question. She says, do you foresee other common donation platforms being able to accept crypto in the near future? I do. So, with us, you have a donation landing page on the Giving Block's website. You have a widget that lives on your own website. And it goes back once again to your strategy. I highly recommend that you have specific SEO driven landing page. That way, when someone's Googling Northern Spotted Owl crypto donations, you're popping to the top of Google's results. So whether you incorporate that into your own website, there are some other donation providers donation processors that do provide the ability to accept crypto, but they don't necessarily have the knowledge resources that we are able to provide to our clients, the education that we provide to our clients. So obviously we're the best, and I'm going to say we're the best, and we're always going to be the best. But there are starting to become others that are out there, but they just don't do it as well as us. So
yeah, because for instance, PayPal is taking crypto now, but I agree with Josh that, frankly, even using PayPal just to take credit card donations is challenging for charities because it doesn't have all the customization. It is rather clunky to put a PayPal widget on your website. So I think that just like credit card donations have had some additional processors and additional companies that have created entire strategies around online giving. This is going to be part of it too, that there are going to be these third-party entities like the Giving Block and like some of the other ones that we've dealt with for online giving, who are going to add that layer of donor-focused interface because, like I said, PayPal's taking it, but it's clunky.
It's clunky, and I hate PayPal as a donation option because it's very clinical of the experience, and you're taking them off-site, and you're losing that branding experience. So there are other donation options out there. There are free ones for small nonprofits. Don't go the PayPal route. And I know that Venmo has finally changed their terms of services to actually allow nonprofits to begin accepting charitable gifts. But once again, that's not an ideal situation. Okay, maybe you're at the Booster-thon and you're selling your t-shirts and you want to process a gift or something by Venmo, okay, but that shouldn't be your donation option. So philanthropic NFTs, easiest way to describe it, you have your cryptocurrency that is, we'll call it the widget token. And that widget token now has a pretty picture and it's an NFT. Like that's just the easiest way to describe it. It's a tangible item that can be traded, that it's non-fungible in the sense that like, all right, one-to-one, like, you have what it is and this is what it's valued at. So a lot of times you can have NFT artists who have, once again, that desire. Their grandmother was a breast cancer survivor. They themselves are a breast cancer survivor. They want to support a breast cancer organization. So they're going to align with, and there's very specific like language, a partner, which implies a financial relationship and endorsement, and never, and the same thing with cryptocurrency. If you've got a cryptocurrency token that comes to you and says, we want to donate to you, but you need to promote us, major red flags. You cannot promote the purchase of a security, which is cryptocurrency or an NFT, because then you are endangering the status of your 501c3. So the ways to get around this are working with organizations that benefit, you're the beneficiary of this NFT project. You're the beneficiary of this cryptocurrency donation. A lot of times you can talk about the impact of your organization as a result of their gifts, but not say, go and, mint this NFT project. With the way the technology is through a smart contract, you can actually have your NFT developers write into the smart contract that a percentage of the royalties, because anytime that an NFT is bought or sold, it is a royalty goes back to that artist, goes back to that initial smart contract. So you could have a percentage written into that as well. NFTs, one of the most popular ones last year, actually, I guess it was March 2020, was Bored Ape Yacht Club. A lot of celebrities have them, and it's stupid money. Like it's, it's a status symbol that are valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars, because that's just, once again, these people bought Ethereum when it was pennies on the dollar. But then you have real projects that are focused with philanthropic interest from the beginning. So Stella Artois uses water in the production of their beer. And as opposed to making a $50,000 donation directly to water.org, they say, you know what, we're going to do a philanthropic NFT auction, and all the proceeds from that auction are going to go to water.org. So water.org cannot host that auction because, once again, that's you endorsing a security sale, and that's going to endanger 501c3 status. But you can align in the sense saying, okay, we have this great organization that's doing something for us. So we've seen that happen. Inspiration X, the Elon Musk space mission that went into lower outer orbit, they drove an NFT auction and sales, raising over $200 million to St. Jude's through all their efforts. So there's a lot of ways that you can associate with an NFT artist, with an NFT project, to help benefit your organization, but never endorse the sale of one and never host an auction yourself of one. At the same time, too, if you're a nonprofit that accepts crypto, it's more beneficial for the donor themselves to liquidate that NFT and then donate the crypto versus donating the NFT to you. So in traditional, like, charitable art, someone's going to donate you a valuable painting. It's a headache to that organization that's going to accept this painting. Like, what are you supposed to do with it? It's better for the donor themselves to sell that painting and then take that $5,000, $10,000, $100,000 and donate it to the organization that way.
Sorry, mute there. Very helpful in understanding. And it like in many of these kinds of vehicles, it sounds like liquidating quickly is part of the strategy as well, so that you can realize the actual value. Tracy, I'm not sure if your question got answered. What other options are there for smaller nonprofits?
I've got a good link. I'm looking up the link right now. I believe Gively is a good one. Let me find that for you.
That's great. So go ahead.
Yeah, and I think another thing to look at is that if the charity has a CRM, which I would hope that the charity has a CRM. There are enough low cost cloud-based CRMs now that there really is no excuse to not have one.
Name some of them, Alice.
So like, for instance, Bloomerang.
That's the
is
first one
of
I was going to
those.
say.
Yeah. 'cause-
Bloomerang, if you have less than sorry to jump on you, Alice.
Yeah.
If you have less than 500 records in your account, you can have a free version of Bloomerang. Do not go you're starting out your small nonprofit. Excel is not ideal because you can't really build donor records that way. While it's not a traditional CRM, Airtable could in theory work, but that would be a little more manual DIY than just working with like a Neon one or even QGIve, I think, provides some low-level CRM options.
Yeah,
That's
I think the
great.
vast majority do have versions that are either deeply discounted or, as Josh mentioned, free for a CRM for a charity. And most of them, I think, back to the trends topic, one of the trends that I'm seeing with the CRMs is that they're trying to be one stop for you. They're trying to integrate everything you need so that you don't have to have all these different systems and platforms. I mean, I just had this conversation with someone I'm coaching earlier today, where she was asking me, so as a consultant, how do you manage all of these different tasks and manage your own goals and all these other things? And I started to tick off all the things that I use. And at the end, she just paused and she says, Alice, that's a lot of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I know, because I've been doing this for 20 years and I've had to stitch together all of these systems, and I'm a productivity nerd. So I'm constantly testing all these new things. And what I'm seeing, though, is that the CRMs are trying to make things simpler. So they've integrated in, for instance, an email production mailer so that you can create a newsletter or you can create a direct mail email. And those are integrated into the systems. Most of them also have a payment processor integrated into them, where you may have to pay an additional fee to have that module added to your CRM, or they may do it as a percentage based. So you pay essentially a processing fee for every transaction that gets processed. So that would be one thing that I would look at. I saw Josh posted Give Lively. There's also, I would look into some kind of commercial products like Stripe. When you look at Etsy or anything that you do through your shop app, that's all being processed by Stripe. And you can take Stripe and pay, again, a percentage fee. So it would be like maybe 2 or 3% of the transaction plus a per transaction fee of like 20, 30, or 40 cents. And you don't have to have an ongoing fee that you're paying a subscription for, but you can use those same tools that like a small retailer or someone on Etsy would use. I figure if it's good enough for Etsy, it's good enough for a small nonprofit.
That's great. That's terrific. It really sounds like as a fundraiser, you need somebody in your team to kind of nerd out on some of these productivity and efficiency things to be able to find, or at least, are there any services, or are you following these things on Twitter? When new things come up, where are you finding them? How are you finding them? Or is it coming from AFP?
A lot of the things that I start using are because Josh tells me to.
And where do you find them then, Josh?
I mean, going down the rabbit hole on Twitter, going down the rabbit hole of just subscribing to different blogs and, listservs. AFP is a great resource for sure. But even they're still behind with a lot of things. I think they're doing better about staying on top of trends and things like that. But, definitely listservs, blogs, webinars,
I think every industry has, future thinkers, forward thinkers, and in your areas, you need to look for those folks and those organizations who have the future thinkers on listservs. I know listservs are old, but on Twitter, on any of the social media. Go ahead, Alice. What were you going to say?
I think one other thing that I use pretty consistently is in terms of statistical trends for giving. And, these are more reflecting back. So it's up to you to kind of think about what does that mean going forward. And I would challenge people to use their graduate level analytical skills to take a look at patterns from the last few quarters or the last few years to see what am I seeing in common. So it would be the Fundraising Effectiveness Project, which is AFPFEP.org.
Yep.
And the Fundraising Effectiveness Project is a collaboration with the Association of Fundraising Professionals and almost every CRM company in North America, as well as now the Giving Institute, the people who put out the Giving USA statistics. And all of them are working together to look at quarter by quarter results of how are we doing in new donor acquisition, how are we doing in donor retention, first year donor retention, and what are some of the strategies around that you can look at to compare your charity with national statistics and figure out where you can essentially plug the holes. Because one of the big things that we have in the sector is a leaky bucket. Donors leave us all the time, and some organizations have leakier buckets than others. So if we can plug the holes, then we can keep what we got and go get more. So
That makes sense.
the only way to grow your donor base really is to keep the people that you already have. And so I look at AFP, the Fundraising Effectiveness Project, and then I also look at Giving USA of the, how are those year by year trends showing
That's great.
changes in individual giving, where the giving's going in the sector, and that'll help me kind of project moving forward into the future.
That's great. I don't know who wants to take this one on, but Robin asked, you mentioned promoting crypto giving through Twitter. Are there other platforms outside of the common ones for general giving that you'd recommend promoting crypto on?
So Twitter's where it's all going to live. You might have some more effectiveness on LinkedIn. There's a little bit we're seeing on Reddit and Discord. But I would say you're going to focus 98% of your strategy from a social perspective on Twitter. And then obviously, like I said, going back to your email, your newsletter, any sort of direct mail pieces you might do, because you don't know, once again, who within your organization or in your current ecosystem has access to crypto, or even know that you have that ability to give via crypto.
So Josh, I'll finish out with one more question. The volatility of crypto isn't keeping you away from it at all. It's the future. So if a nonprofit says that they're avoiding it because of the volatility, it really kind of is a dated argument of sorts.
Yeah, I think that if you accept gifts of stock, like stock is a very volatile market as well. Might not necessarily be as volatile as crypto, just because of the stock market's been around for 100+ years, and crypto philanthropies, we're talking 5 years. So it's infantile stages, but it's big dollars, like major dollars are going to be donated via crypto. I think we did $100 million last year in crypto donations.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not a flash in the pan. Like, this is a legitimate form of philanthropy, and you might not have those donors now, but it's better to prepare for the future. So that way, when you do have a donor, like we had that approached our major, director of major gifts, said, I want to give a gift of crypto. How do I do that? You got to be able and ready to process those gifts.
That's awesome. Alice, any closing words?
Well, I think that anytime we're dealing with change, especially if we're looking at future stuff and it seems like something scary, I kind of have started to help organizations understand that we're not asking you to get rid of all your other strategies. Just dump everything, become community centered, and only take crypto. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is you have to have if you're going to move forward and be forward thinking, you have to have a portion of your strategy that is essentially a calculated risk. So what of your budget, what of your strategies, what of your overall, philosophy are you going to set aside to be something that is worth the risk? That might be only 1% of your strategy. It might be 5% of your strategy, but don't bet the entire farm on these things. Just try it little by little, and it'll be fine.
That's awesome. Alice Ferris, Josh Hirsch, thank you so much for your time this evening of sharing your expertise and your humor about it. We're very grateful. Thank you, Robin and Sarah and Sharon and Ban Kim and Brian for coming. Tracy, thanks so much for being a great background person. We really appreciate all of your participation, and we'll see you again on the next version, whatever we decide to do. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.